Do you ever think to yourself, "Oh, if I it was me, I would have done this, or it was me, I would have do that." Do you ever put yourself in the quality shoe?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all interesting to hear about how people handle certain cases or examples because, again, I think it does take a lot of people skills to, you know, I mean, people always talk about emotional intelligence, and that seems like such a part of it. Like you have to know, how to motivate people and also inspire them. And I remember one of our former professional leaders, she gave a great talk and she said, like, her husband was also an engineer, but she had gotten further in her career. She said, and she said, oh, he's smarter than me, but I have really better people skills. And because her example was like, to test how good you are at this, consider if you were dropped off at a party and you didn't know anyone and you had to get home. She's like, he would just start walking immediately. Like, I'm not even going to try. I'll get home myself. Whereas she would try to, ask everyone, do you live around here? I'm heading this way later. And so just the interesting interactions. And so, yeah, it's
But
fun to read about those. And
yeah, I bet it is, and I can only imagine that because do you have a background in quality, or do you have a background in
no,
communications and editing?
journalism, yeah, yeah. So I have a master's in journalism, and so that's kind of how I found out about the position. And it's sort of like, well, we don't expect to hire someone in the quality field, but we'll definitely train you. And the more plant tours you go on, and events and conferences, and then you get kind of immersed in the field. So yeah, it was
Well,
yeah.
18 years into it, I imagine you've gleaned quite a array of quality tools and
Yeah,
approaches, and
yeah, yeah. It's great. I mean, I really love it, and I mean, the people are always so great. The association meetings, it's like a reunion of old friends and just kind of checking in, and even conferences. You just see people you haven't seen in a long time, and even some you don't necessarily know their name, but you just recognize them by face. And how's your kid, and all that.
Mm,
So yeah, and then the other thing that's really fun about the industry is getting to get an inside look at Nissan and Ford and Lockheed Martin and all these big companies that you just don't realize how helicopters are assembled and what goes into car painting and the 13 colors they offer and all these things that you walk down the street and you're like, oh, there's a Nissan, interesting, it's one of their top four colors, and of the
that's
13 they offer at that plant. And so
that's funny. I guess it just comes with the nature of the work that you do, that what you're learning, you're thinking about that in everyday world, right? Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And there always talk stories about like if there was no quality, you wake up, but you're late because your alarm didn't go off, and then your car breaks down because it wasn't maintained, and all those things. That it's such a whole cascading.
So do you see any emerging, topics that are new? I mean, AI is obviously a big thing right now, and even is every week it seems that there's something new on the AI front. How does that fit in with quality and what you're seeing and hearing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely everyone's talking about how we can use it and what we should do and how does it fit in our general automation plan. And so there's so many aspects, with checking standards or writing a process. And so I feel like people are embracing it. We always do these reader surveys about how far along people are, and people were interested in AI, but they still, according to our readers, like were more concerned about the skilled workforce issues and kind of the economy and like other things like that were more pressing to them, even though they were interested in AI, but it wasn't like their top of mind concern or project going forward. So, and then it depends because you read other surveys and it's more like, oh, 70% of people are on board now. And, so who knows? And it does seem like every few months it will change. But we also have gotten feedback from readers who say, like, AI is great, it's very helpful, but like I really still need help with my inspection plan. So don't forget about that. Like, please also cover these quality basics that we use every day. They're not like grand big picture plans and transforming the business, but I do need help, sharing this with my colleagues. And so kind of balance both, I guess.
Obviously, you must see repeated patterns of content to a degree of subject matter. I mean, not how
Mhm.
it's delivered. Obviously, each time you deliver it in a unique way. But what are some of the consistent themes you see year over year?
Yeah, I mean, every aspect of continuous improvement, I feel like, is an important topic, whether it's, through Lean or Six Sigma or, just other outside programs people are talking about, like people-centered leadership or some other things that have been really interesting. So it just seems like there's, big picture thing. And then it's also topics related to certain softwares or, gauging trends or just like a management theme on how to, motivate employees or deal with change or inspire people to do good work and, you know, be involved and engaged in the organization. So there's definitely a range of topics that we cover every year. And when we get outside submissions and pitches, it seems like, a lot of things that come up in the news are also always a reaction, whether it's, tariffs or supply chain issues or, whatever else
Mm.
is happening. There's always, a ripple down into quality where people want to talk about that as well.
Well, I think those are important too, because I mean, a lot of people, doesn't matter where you are in the globe, people often think, buy local, be local, support local, and so on, right? Do you think that with local, there is this expectation that they have a better quality? If I buy something that's made here or brewed here or whatever, do you think that there's this perception if I buy local, I'm getting better quality?
In some cases, I feel like people talk about, reshoring, but they also are sort of the benefits are maybe if you're designing something here and building it here, like I think the GE example with the appliance park, that really makes a difference because then the engineers see what's happening in production. So they realize, like, oh, we should maybe design this better because there's some assembly problems or something like that. So, in a way, but in another way, it seems like people do realize that the world is so interconnected at this point and parts and supplies come from all over. So, it is difficult to kind of change the way you've maybe set things up in the past, or if you do, it's a years long, process to kind of switch suppliers or change where you're manufacturing. But yeah, I mean, definitely people, I think, for consumer goods are always happy to see like, oh, this is American manufacturing. And but yeah, it's definitely, I think, a balance. And yeah, just I think difficult with different regulatory rules and guidelines because people say, I have a friend who works for the Wall Street Journal, and she just wrote an article about how much should a copper bathtub cost, and that's what the company's trying to figure out because they have suppliers who are based abroad and they sell here to like big box stores who don't want to accept higher prices, but with the tariffs, they're not sure. So it's always kind of interesting how that works.
If you're getting value out of this video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit subscribe, and please leave me your comment because I'm always anxious to hear from them and I will answer every comment.
And perceptions of what the consumer wants versus what they want to pay for. And yeah.
So when somebody makes a submission to you, what goes into your evaluation as to whether it gets into the magazine or not?
Well, the number one thing we usually say is it shouldn't be commercial at all. So if you're at a company, don't send something that's like rah rah, our product is the best, our company, you know, this is a thinly disguised sales pitch. So we always, and they can still include their author, bio with their company name and everything in there. So they will get attention that way. But mostly we just want them to tell something that is like a how-to story or a trends piece, giving, opinions on something or just kind of like a 101 on the basics of something you might need a refresher on. And then we also try to tell them too, if you ever have examples or anecdotes or personal things you can share about it, that's always much more memorable to tell a story and to that's why case studies are always very popular as well. So if there's ever someone who can read it and think like, oh, I had that same exact problem, I wonder, this will help me. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's our
relatable type
exactly.
stories. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
People get a hold of you, or how do they find you? Let's ask that.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, you can go to qualitymag.com and find me there or on LinkedIn as well, or you find quality on LinkedIn as well. So, yeah, we're always looking for new contributors and writers and guest columnists and people to be involved in the magazine. And whether you contribute an article yourself or if you want to be interviewed by one of the editors talking about, a roundup story we're doing and interviewing a few people.
Well, I'm going to make sure in the bio I put that contact information. I put your LinkedIn information as well. I make a point of doing that.